These are the matters of Kentrell, Pirtle, cause numbers 45 DL60806 JD 1051 and 45 DL60808 JD 1383, and Kenneth Lee Gant, cause numbers 45 DL60808 JD 1373 and 45 DL60805 JD 907. Let the record show that Attorney Guzek is present representing the prosecutor's office. Mr. Smith and Ms. Clayton are present from the probation department. Attorney Ruck is present representing both boys. Your name, young man?
Kenneth Lee Gant.
And how old are you, Kenneth?
16, Your Honor.
Your name, young man?
Kentrell.
And how old are you, Kentrell?
14.
All right. Your name, please?
Carolyn Hooker, therapist, apostolic youth and family services.
All right. And your name, please?
Mary Gant, mother.
All right. Ms. Hooker, are you currently working with this family?
Yes, with Kenneth and his mother.
And for what period of time have you been doing that?
Since this year, I can't give you the exact date, but I would say early part of this year to the present.
All right. You've not worked with Kentrell?
No.
All right. These matters are set today for various things. Both boys have initial hearings this morning on charges stemming from a criminal mischief action, and then Kentrell also has an initial hearing on some other charges. And Kenneth is here for a disposition on a matter to which he admitted earlier last week. Is that right, Mr. Smith?
That's correct, John.
All right. Mr. Ruck, have your clients been advised of their rights?
They have, Judge.
Do they understand what their rights are?
They do.
Do they have any questions about them?
They don't.
At this time, do you want me to read the allegations in the new charges?
Yes, Judge.
I'll start with Kentrell's charges, and that would be the cause number ending in 1051. Says the following, that Kentrell is under IC 3542-51 and IC 3541-5-1. On or about the 4th day of April 2008, Kentrell Pirtle, while armed with a deadly weapon, that is broken cinder block, did knowingly or intentionally attempt to take property, that is money, from the person or presence of Johnny Tidwell by putting Johnny Tidwell in fear, by throwing broken cinder block at Johnny Tidwell while threatening to take his money, which constituted a substantial step toward the commission of robbery. Does he admit or deny that allegation?
Judge, he denies that allegation.
Count 2, criminal recklessness, Class D felony pursuant to IC 35-42-2-2. On or about the 4th day of April 2008, said child, Kentrell Pirtle, did recklessly, knowingly, or intentionally perform an act while armed with a deadly weapon, that is, broken cinder block, which created a substantial risk of bodily injury to Johnny Tidwell by throwing broken cinder block at Johnny Tidwell. Does he admit or deny the allegation?
He denies that allegation, Judge.
All right. Count 3, resisting law enforcement, which would be Class A misdemeanor if he were an adult, IC 3544-3-3. On or about the 4th day of April 2008, Kentrell Pirtle did knowingly or intentionally flee from a law enforcement officer after that officer identified himself and by visible or audible means ordered said Kentrell Pirtle to stop, that officer being Police Officer C. Menard, Gary Police Department. Does he admit or deny that allegation?
He denies that allegation.
Then we'll go to his next charge under cause number ending in 1383. Says here, count 1, criminal mischief, which would be a Class A misdemeanor if he were an adult, IC 35-43-1-2. On or about the 12th day of July 2009, said Kentrell Pirtle did recklessly, knowingly, or intentionally, without consent, damage the property of Tim Holm, that is, by breaking a window of a 2008 Volvo, causing damage in the amount less than $2,500 but greater than $250. Does he admit or deny that allegation?
He denies that allegation.
Count 2, criminal trespass, which would be a Class A misdemeanor if he were an adult, IC 35-43-2-2. On or about the 12th day of July 2008, said child, Kentrell Pirtle, not having a contractual interest in the property, did knowingly or intentionally enter the real property of the Metro Center located at 300 Jefferson Street, Gary, Indiana, after having been denied entry by means of management. Does he admit or deny that allegation?
He denies that allegation.
All right. We'll talk about what the matter will be set for, disposition, or what other orders the court will make. Let's move to Kenneth.
Judge, before we do that, is Mr. Ruck requesting discovery on those matters?
We are, Judge.
So you don't have any of the discovery Okay, today the court will order discovery from the state to be provided to you within, 3 working days. We'll go now to Kenneth Gant. He has actually one charge that he's here today for disposition. That would be the cause number ending in 907. And in that case, he admitted those allegations, which were, let me see. Those allegations were one count of criminal mischief that would be a Class A misdemeanor if he were an adult. And now we'll move to his new charge, which reads the following. Count 1, criminal mischief, Class A misdemeanor if he were an adult, IC 35-43-1-2, on or about the 12th day of July 2008, said Kenneth Gant did recklessly, knowingly, or intentionally, without consent, damage the property of Tim Holm, that is, by breaking the window of a 2008 Volvo, causing damage in an amount less than $2,500, but greater than $250. Does your client admit or deny the allegation?
Judge, he denies the allegation.
In count 2, criminal trespass, Class A misdemeanor, IC 35-43-2-2, on or about the 12th day of July 2008, Kenneth Gant, not having a contractual interest in the property, did knowingly or intentionally enter the real property of Metro Center, located at 300 Jefferson Street, Gary, Indiana, in the parking lot after having been denied entry by means of management. Does he admit or deny the count of criminal trespass?
Judge, he denies the allegation.
All right. Kenneth's first matter was set for disposition today. Mr. Smith, have you prepared a predispositional report?
Yes, Your Honor.
And based upon that report, what is your request today?
The probation department is recommending that Kenneth remain detained and be ordered to complete a psychological evaluation with DCS services being made to pay for said services. This officer would also recommend that matter be reset for further disposition.
Mr. Rock?
Judge, we, I guess, agree with the psychological evaluation component of the recommendation, but I would like the opportunity to at least argue that they should no longer be detained while the case pens. In fact, his mother is here today and has indicated and will indicate to the court her willingness to have her sons released to her today.
All right. As it relates to Kentrell, he's got some very serious charges pending. What is your request today pending his disposition? By way
Pending
of
his disposition,
services?
Judge, yeah, we would recommend that the psychological evaluation certainly be ordered, and again, that he be released today.
All right. Are you ready to begin your evidence as to his release or further detention? All right, call your first witness.
Ms. Hooker, state your name, please.
Carolyn Hooker,
What is your occupation?
therapist,
For who?
Apostolic Youth and Family Services.
What type of educational background and training do you have?
I have an MSW in social work.
And what is your involvement, Ms. Hooker, with the individual that we're here with today?
Provide counseling and therapy for Kenneth and his mother.
Okay, now you're not providing any therapy to Kentrell?
No,
Why not?
it was not referred for service.
How did your involvement come about?
As a referral to our agency from the probation department.
And how long have you been involved in this therapy?
Since the, I guess maybe toward the end of the winter of this year. I don't have an exact date, and I apologize for that.
Okay, so for at least 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. During that time, how much contact or how many therapeutic sessions have you had with Ken and his mother?
Usually there's once a week session. And Mom, I would come back for parenting.
Okay. Are you aware, ma'am, of the extensive background and history that Ken has?
Yes, Mom had shared a lot of that, and I did receive some information from the probation department as well.
Okay. What types of things have you been working on with Ken and his mother?
You know, working on that parent-child relationship, he's somewhat defiant to the rules, trying to get Mom to work on establishing clear rules, expectations, also real clear consequences for him. Because things have happened and they have just gone unattended to in terms of him needing to grow from the experiences.
Such as what?
Well, you know, things at school, him testing positive for marijuana. Kenneth, he gives the impression that he's passive and a follower, but I think in reality he's more of a leader among his peers. But then again, he doesn't really think about the outcome before he makes his decision to do whatever. So it really concerns me. And, you know, these are things that he really needs to work on. And I recommend at this time a psychological be done just to see and rule out any kind of deficiencies that may be there or concerns.
Now, is the type of problems that Ken has that you talked about, are those things that can be improved through therapy?
It can if he's motivated, and that's one of the challenges that I've had with Kenneth. I think he lacks the motivation. He will listen. I will give him credit for that. But his follow-through often is not as we would hope it to be.
Has it improved?
I can't say that as much as I would like to because he continues to make poor choices.
Okay. Is that something you're continuing to work on?
Yes.
Okay. So you think that the psychological evaluation that's been ordered today, or that will be ordered today by the court, is appropriate?
Absolutely. Hopefully, it'll give us more insight into what's going on or some areas we need to address.
Ma'am, let me ask you then this question. Do you believe that it's appropriate for Ken to continue to remain detained while this psychological evaluation takes place? Or do you believe that that evaluation can take place on some type of with him released?
Well, it can occur outside, absolutely.
Well, I guess my question is, if he were to be released to his mother today, do you think that that would be, do you think he'd be presenting any harm to people or to himself?
You know, I can't really say because I think as recent as the previous time he was released, there were some concerns. So I'm very much concerned about his judgment.
But you did say he's able to listen, correct?
He does listen, yes.
And if you were to tell him to act a certain way, do you think he'd be able to listen and follow through with that?
I think he would need strong family support. I think mom would need to actually work harder on reminding him, encouraging him, and just establishing those clear boundaries and limits. There is some disrespect toward his mom in the home, and I don't know if that's because the father isn't in the home, because when father was there, I saw a lot more respect, and he had a little longer span of time before he got into trouble between each incident.
And you've been working with Mother, so do you think that Mother is able to provide that type of structure and support?
I think she wants to, but it needs a lot of work there in terms of her role as a parent and parenting issues.
Is that something you would be able to continue to assist them with if Ken were to be released?
Yes. As long as it's, required by probation, absolutely.
One final question, ma'am. I think what I understand your testimony to be is that Ken's making improvement, but he still has a ways to go.
Absolutely.
He listens to you when you tell him to do things, provided he has the appropriate structure and oversight.
Yes.
If he were to be released today with court-ordered restrictions in terms of where he can go, who he can be around, when he has to be at home, do you think that that would at least help alleviate some of the concern you might have over releasing him today?
My recommendation if he's released would be house arrest. I think Kenneth needs to be home and really focus on himself and the need to grow and make some positive changes.
Why do you feel he needs to be home?
Because the influence of the environment is really strong right now in his life, and I just think he needs to kind of move away from that and to assess what he needs to do.
Ma'am, then finally, do you believe that that would be in his best interest to have that type of outcome where he's released home on house arrest with court-ordered restrictions placed upon him while he has the psychological evaluation?
That would be fine. I would be in agreement with that.
Thank you. That's all that I have, Judge.
Mrs. Guzek?
Ms. Hooker, you indicated that Kenneth shows disrespect to his mother in the home.
Yes.
Does that defiance or that disrespect take the form of defiance to parental directives by the mother?
Sometimes, yes. I think Kenneth has more issues with anger, and we've been trying to work on managing his anger more effectively.
And I'm sorry, how many times a week do you meet with Kenneth and his mother?
Once a week, and Mom once or twice, because we try to include the parenting sessions.
I have no further questions for Ms. Hooker.
Thank you, Ms. Hooker. Next witness.
Take your boys home. If that's what you want. You've got to go up there. Judge, I would call Ken and Kentrell's mother to the stand. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Can you tell us your name?
Mary Gant.
Mary, speak nice and loud so that I can hear you way over on the other side of the room here, okay?
Mary Gant.
Mary, what is your relationship to Ken and Kentrell?
They're my sons.
Okay. And you're here today in court. Are you able to take Ken and Kentrell home with you today and provide the oversight and support that we just heard that they would need if they were to be released today?
Yes.
Okay. Do you work?
No.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the home environment right now in terms of how you'd be able to make sure that your boys are compliant with your instructions, because it sounds like that's a bit of an ongoing challenge.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, just tell us how you think it would work out. How would you be able to provide the structure to your sons so that they wouldn't get into any more trouble?
For one, I'm going to keep them in the house. Because I don't want to see them out in the streets, and I don't want them to get hurt, and I don't want them to do the wrong things. I've been trying to teach them, but they goes out in the streets and they listen to their friends and get in trouble. But I want them to come home, because their brothers and sisters done missed them too.
What do you think, ma'am, what do you think kind of the cause of the trouble they've been getting into has been? Just from a perspective as their mother, you seeing them here today in court, what do you think the problems are that led up to this?
The people they hang with.
Have you tried to influence them before about not hanging out with certain people?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I try keeping them in the house. I keep them in the house, and then when they do right, I let them go outside. And when they go outside, they hang out with the wrong crowd, and they get in trouble.
What do you think that the court could do to help you have your sons follow the rules and the restrictions that you put on them?
The house arrest.
How do you think that'll help?
That way he won't go nowhere but to school and back home.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No.
That's all I have, Judge.
Mrs. Guzek?
Ms. Gant, why do you think that the court telling Kenneth to stay in the house is going to keep him there?
Because he was on house arrest before, and he stayed in the house.
What are you going to do differently? He's had 4 referrals to the juvenile court this year alone. So what are you going to do differently starting today?
I'm going to take control over them.
How are you going to do that?
I'm be a harder parent.
Did you hear Ms. Hooker say that Kenneth doesn't follow your rules, though?
He does, but Kenneth like things his way.
Well, how is that going to change today?
Because it is going to change today.
So you don't have any plan in action for it to change. You just think it's going to change.
No, I know it's going to change.
Well, what is the plan in action?
I'm going to put my foot down.
So you didn't before? You just let them do what they wanted to do before?
No, I didn't pretty much let them do anything they want to do.
Okay.
I tell them to do the right thing, but they taking them on themselves to do what they want to do when they outside my house. Or
So-
when they in my house, they do what I tell them to do.
Okay, so Kenneth defies you.
Sometimes.
I have no further questions.
Anything else, Mr. Ruck?
Ma'am, with the proper court order assisting you in providing that oversight, are you confident that you'll be able to keep control of both of your boys?
Yes.
That's all that I have, Judge.
Thank you, Mrs. Gant. you have any other witnesses, Mr. Rock?
Nope.
Mr. Smith, would you please address the court as to the issue of release or detention of the boys? Let's start with Kenneth, and what your opinion is as to, whether they're a danger to the community or not.
Your Honor, Kenneth is currently on official probation under complaint 4. He's fine when he meets with me, but he's not attending school. He's in alternative school, Chase Alternative School. He wasn't attending. Apostolic is meeting with him, but his last 3 drug screens have been positive. One as recent as maybe 3 weeks ago.
For what?
For THC, for marijuana. He also was arrested on a charge that was a direct file that went to the adult system that was dismissed as well.
What was that charge?
That charge was criminal mischief, battery, consumption of alcohol, intimidation, robbery, and theft.
Okay.
Which was a direct file. In the process of being on probation, he was arrested for complaint 5, this charge, and complaint 7 as well. So I would recommend he remain detained. I did file a modification of probation under complaint 4. That was withdrew last week because he admitted to the charges under complaint 7.
Okay. All right. And what about Kentrell?
Kentrell as well has a past history of being on official probation. He was released earlier this year in March or April. In the process, he's been arrested 2 times as well. So I would recommend that he remain detained, a danger to the community. There's also in the neighborhood, I've talked to Mom about this, a lot of gang activity on the street that they live on. And I believe that they're affiliated with the gangs out there on the streets as well. A lot of drug activity as well. I've discussed that with her. So I strongly recommend they remain detained pending the psychological evaluations.
All right. Mr. Ruck, anything else before the court rules? No. Mrs. Guzek, anything else?
Yes, Judge. Regarding Kentrell, Pirtle, the state would definitely concur with Mr. Smith's recommendation that he remain detained here as a serious danger to this community. The attempted robbery charge pending before the court involves allegations that he, along with a group of other boys, were pelting the intended victim with cinder block, trying to rob him. He's a very dangerous person, and he needs to remain detained. As far as Mr. Gant, state also feels he's a very dangerous person. I think Mr. Smith's explanation to the court of Mr. Gant's record was a little confusing. July 14th, Mr. Gant had a detention hearing before the court. One of the charges was robbery as a C felony. At that time, because of his age, which is age 16, Magistrate Cedia found that the juvenile court did not have jurisdiction over that offense, as the allegations involved either use of a weapon or injury to another person, and ordered that that case be dismissed in juvenile court to be filed in the criminal court. I don't know, as we sit here, if that case has also been, or if that case has been filed at this time in the criminal court. In addition to that, he's had 4 referrals to this court this year alone. The court's been dealing with this young man since he was 11 years old. He came into the system with a very, very serious offense, shooting, I believe, his brother. Then Ms. Hooker testified today that he doesn't really listen to his mother. He shows a lot of disrespect for her. He's defiant to the rules, that he's a leader. He's not a follower, so it's not the other kids in the community that are making him do what he does. He makes poor choices. And I think the most important thing that she said today was she can't really say if he would cause harm if he was out in the community. And I think that the court cannot take the chance that he may cause another person harm, and he needs to remain detained as a danger to the community also.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Guzek. Well, today, of course, the court will order that both boys have a psychological evaluation. I'm going to set this matter for disposition or further disposition in one of the causes to September 5th, 2008 at 9 a.m. I'm going to order that Dr. Ruff perform those psychological evaluations. I'll order that I'll make the boys temporary wards of the Department of Child Services so that we can get those services paid for. But in the meantime, the court will, as it relates to Kenneth, I know, Kenneth, that you want to leave. I read the letter you wrote to this court about your girlfriend having a baby soon. I'm certain that you would like to be there, as you told me in your letter. You also said in your letter that you want to be in school, but to hear Mr. Smith say it, you're not really in school. In addition to that, you've tested positive in your last 3 drug screens. And you know, I'd like to give you a break here, but in light of this is your 6th referral to this court, 4 in the year of 2008, the court's going to order that you remain detained pending your next hearing and that you may be a danger to yourself or to the community. As it relates to Kentrell, the court is going to also order that he remain detained pending his next hearing because this is his 4th referral to this court, and these are serious charges. And for all of those reasons, the court will find that he may be a danger to himself or to the community, and they'll both remain detained pending their next hearings on September 5th. Any questions?
No.
Any questions, Mrs. Guzek? No. All right, this hearing's adjourned. Thank you.
Hang in there, stay strong.
Get those now. This way, guys. Look to your left, okay? Stand right here. Stand right here for me. Ma'am, will you stand right here for me?
What face this?
John. Please raise your right hand, all of you. Do each of you swear that the testimony given today to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes. Yes.
Be seated, please.
These are the matters of Kenneth Pirtle, also known as Gant. Cause numbers are 45 DL 60808 JD 1373, which is set for an omnibus hearing, and 45 DL 60805 JD 907, which is set for disposition. Also, we're here for Kentrell Pirtle, 45 DL 60806 JD 1051, and 1383, both of which are set for omnibus hearing. Let the record show that Attorney Guzek is present representing the prosecutor's office. Ms. Clayton is present from the intake department. Mr. Smith is present probation officer for both boys. Attorney Ruck is present representing both boys. Your name, ma'am?
Carolyn Hooker, therapist, Apostolic Youth and Family Services.
All right. And your name, ma'am?
Mary Gant mother.
All right. Will you state your name, young man?
My name Kenneth Gant,
And how old are you, Kenneth?
17.
All right. And your name, please?
Kentrell, Pro,
And how old are you, Kentrell?
14.
14. All right. Mr. Ruck, have you been served with a copy of the psychological evaluations?
I have, Judge.
And Mrs. Guzek, you have those as well?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Then as it relates to, let's start with Kentrell. Both of his matters are set for omnibus hearing today. Are you ready to proceed with those, Mr. Ruck?
Judge, I am. I spoke with Ms. Guzek prior to today's court hearing. We've agreed to have Kentrell admit to the charge of trespass. There'll be a deferral of the remaining charges at this point, subject to further review upon completion of whatever the court recommends today. And he's prepared to admit to those today.
And that's under cause number 45 DL 60808 JD 1383. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mrs. Guzek, is that the agreement? Yes. All right, then let's start with Kentrell's matter, and if you would establish a factual basis.
State your name.
Kentrell, Pro,
How old are you?
14.
Kentrell, do you admit that on or about July 12th, 2008, in Lake County, Indiana, you did, without the knowledge or permission of the owner, enter the property of another, namely the Metro Center in Gary, Indiana, with the intention to interfere with the possession of the owner's property?
Yes, sir.
And you admit that you did that?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge.
Thank you. So based upon his admission, you are going to dismiss the criminal mischief count, or
Judge, I'm going to ask the court to continue that matter generally.
is that the agreement?
That is the agreement, Judge.
And what about the other cause number?
State also moves to continue those charges generally.
All right. At this time, then, the court will continue the charge of criminal mischief under the cause number ending in 1383, generally to be reset upon motion by the state, and I will continue generally the entire charge, which would under cause number 45, DO 60806, JD 1051. And I will grant the petition under 1383 as it relates to count 2, which is criminal trespass pursuant to IC 35-43-2-2. That being said, Mr. Ruck, at this time, would you be willing or ready to argue at least disposition in this matter?
Yes, Judge, and I can do it with respect to both children, both young men at the same time, or I can do it for each respect.
That's fine with me. We have the same probation officer, but for both boys, so we can, start. We can whichever one you want to start with, Kentrell or Kenneth, is fine with me either way.
Okay.
So who would you like to begin with?
We can begin with Kentrell.
Okay. Did you have witnesses?
Judge, I guess what I would like to do is hear from the probation officer.
All right, Mr. Smith, do you want to have a seat up here? I think I can hear and see you better.
Okay, sir, tell us your name.
Johnny Smith,
What is your occupation?
probation officer for Lake County Juvenile Court.
How long have you served in that capacity?
Probation for about 14 years.
As a probation officer, what are your responsibilities?
To supervise children who are placed on official probation with the juvenile court.
And the two gentlemen next to me, Kenneth and Kentrell, are those two young men individuals who you're supervising?
I have supervised Kentrell in the past, currently supervising Kenneth.
Okay. Now, since we were in court several weeks ago, what has happened?
Several weeks ago, we ordered a psychological evaluation to be completed. Both of those evaluations were completed. At that time, it allowed myself, along with some probation officers, the placement team, and some supervisors to staff the case for possible placement if they were adjudicated.
How many individuals have been involved in making a placement recommendation for these children?
How many individuals? The psychologist, and there were maybe 6 of us involved in the staffing.
So a very thorough examination, investigation was performed?
That's correct.
Have you reached any recommendations as to what should happen?
Yes, for both of them.
Start with Kentrell.
With Kentrell, we did decide that at this time, in the best interest of the community and for himself, that he be placed in a residential treatment facility.
And have you identified such a facility?
We actually sent our package to Daymar, that's in Indiana, IDTC, that's in Indiana, and Willow Glen. At this time, IDTC has accepted him for residential placement.
And what type of environment would that be?
That environment would be where we base it on the needs of the child that we feel he may need to meet the needs that he may have at the time, which we looked at his educational background and maybe him having the vocational skills that he could receive there. So it would be of like-minded kids with that type of background.
And how long of a placement are you recommending?
Placement is generally 6 months to a year. Reviews are set every 3 to 6 months to see, if he's achieving those goals or if we need to readjust or anything.
And what's the purpose of that type of placement?
Hopefully that he take advantage of the things that he needs to become a better citizen and to correct the things that he may be dealing with in the community at this time.
Have you talked to Kentrell's mother?
Briefly, I spoke with her before we came into the courtroom.
Did you consider the possibility of home-based services?
We've already tried home-based services at this time. They currently have Mrs. Hooker from Apostolic in the home. Prior to that, the family did go to counseling for a year through New Horizons through a Chin's matter.
So you're not comfortable recommending home-based services at this time?
Not at this time.
Mr. Smith, do you believe that in any event these two young men should remain detained? I mean, I should say, let me rephrase that. Mr. Smith, do you believe that in any event these children should be remain detained here in the Lake County Detention Center?
Pending placement, if that is ordered.
But certainly as a long-term recommendation, that's not what you're recommending, is it?
I think they need services at this time beyond the juvenile center.
That's all that I have, Judge.
Mrs. Guzek?
Mr. Smith, does ITC deal with children that have severe cognitive deficits?
Yes,
And would they be a facility that would be able to supervise Kentrell until he could transition into some type of sheltered workshop as an adult if need be?
yes,
Okay. There's a recommendation by Dr. Ruff that Kentrell have a neurological evaluation.
correct.
Has that been done?
The neurological hasn't been done.
Has that been ordered by the court?
I don't believe it was ordered by the court. These were just recommendations from Dr.
Do you
Rupp.
think that would be helpful?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Anything else? Thank you. Next witness.
Kentrell, do you want to say anything, or do you want to say anything to the court? Do you want to say anything to the court? You don't know? Do you want to say anything? Nothing? Judge, you think that's the best thing for them? Did you want to speak or no? You want to try? I can ask you the questions pretty simply. Lisa? Okay. Judge, I'd call their mother very briefly, just for a couple quick questions. Tell us your name.
Mary Gant.
Ms. Gant, you are Kenneth and Kentrell's mother, correct?
Yes.
Now, you understand that there's a recommendation that both of your sons be leave the detention center and be placed in a residential placement for the purpose of receiving a variety of services and educational tools and things like that.
Yes.
The alternative that obviously your sons want is to be released without restrictions home with you. What did you want to say, I guess, with respect to those options? Do you think your kids can come home with you today, or should they?
It's for the best.
Do you mind, Mr. Ruck, if I ask her a couple questions? Yes, no, go ahead. Yeah. I noticed in the report, maybe this will help you refocus a little bit. Dr. Ruff indicates, excuse me, that Kentrell reported that he's in Talisman High School in special education. He's not in Talisman. There is no high school, Talisman High School, is
It's
there?
middle school.
So middle school. Does he attend Talisman Middle School?
Well, he just started this year.
To Talisman Middle School. What about Bailey Middle School? He doesn't attend Bailey Middle School?
That's his home school.
Why doesn't he go to the home school?
Because he was in special ed and they sent him to Lincoln.
Okay. Is that different than Talisman?
I'm not for sure.
So what school does he attend then?
Now he's supposed to be at Talisman.
At Talisman.
Right.
But he was at Lincoln.
Right.
Did he ever attend Bailey?
No.
That's just his home school.
Right.
And he's 14,
Yes.
and he's in what grade? If he were to leave here today and go to school, what grade would he be in?
The 7th.
7th grade?
I mean the 8th. I'm
the
sorry.
8th grade. And he receives special education.
Yes.
Were you aware that Kentrell can't read or write very well?
Yes.
So this is something that's been ongoing for a long time?
Yes.
Since what, kindergarten, first grade,
Fifth,
fifth grade? But they noticed that he had some learning differences?
yes,
So he's been in special ed since fifth grade?
yes.
Mr. Rock?
Judge, the only really question I was going to ask is if you think that the placement recommendation is what's in their best interest, or what your opinion is as to what should happen to them.
I want them to come home, but if they need help, I agree with that.
You just will leave it to the court to decide. Either way, you're there to take them home if the court wants to send them home, and you'll help them if they come home,
Yes,
but you'll also support whatever the court decides. You'll support your son.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have, Judge.
Mrs. Guzek?
Question, Judge.
Thank you, Mrs. Gant. You may have a seat back there. Mr. Ruck, I think you maybe failed to, at some point when Mr. Smith was on the stand, we should have questioned him about Kenneth and his recommendation for Kenneth, because we just addressed Kentrell, did we not?
Yeah, I thought we were doing him first separately.
Okay,
but,
I just thought while you had him up, that's fine. I thought maybe you forgot. I was just being a friendly reminder to you, Mr. Ruck.
and that's all the questions I had with respect to Kentrell.
Okay. So do you want to make your argument now?
Sure. And I have no problem, Judge, if Mr. Smith, because I believe his recommendation is the same, wants to at least testify, just to put that in the record as to what it is. I'm not going to call Mom again. It's the same testimony.
You mean for Kenneth?
I'm sorry, for Kenneth, correct.
Okay. Mr. Smith, why don't you just come back up here and testify about Kenneth?
Mr. Smith, obviously, with respect now to Kenneth, why don't you tell us about what your recommendation is?
We were able to staff Kenneth's case as well after receiving the psychological evaluation. We also agreed that he needs residential placement to meet his needs at this time. And after that staffing, we were able to send out package to Jabot, which is located in the state of Indiana, and also to Silver State in Nevada. As of this morning, we do not have an answer for from any one of those facilities.
Okay. And when do you anticipate hearing?
I would hope within this week. I thought we would have a response by this morning, but hopefully by the end of this week.
And what's your plan based on once you get that response?
That he be ordered to be placed on official probation and go to residential placement.
Again, you're not recommending that they go home with their mother?
Not at this time.
That's all I have, Judge.
I guess I'm sorry, Mrs. Guzek.
I was just going to ask Mr. Smith a few questions. Mr. Smith, in staffing Kenneth's case and coming up with a recommendation for placement, what types of problems were you looking at with him?
There were several problems that we had listed for Kenneth. One being attendance in school was an issue. Violation of probation. We had him on probation. There was also home-based counseling where he would meet with the counselor, but there were still violations of substance abuse, drug screens coming back positive, gang involvement, as well, the Vice Lord street gang. Kenneth was pretty well known out there. That's been a problem. And the crimes that he was alleged to be involved in were in the community. And he was arrested 3 more times while on official probation. So there was a lot of things going on. He wasn't attending school. I even tried calling from the school and did reach Mom and couldn't locate Kenneth. So those were the things we said we needed to work with him on, if he's going to have any success in the future.
And those issues were certainly different with Kenneth than they were with Kentrell, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Because if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like you were concerned with Kenneth with his repetitive acts of delinquency, probably first and foremost as a probation officer, the alcohol and substance abuse, the non-attendance at school, and the gang affiliation.
Correct.
I have no further questions.
I have a question. Did your department consider recommending commitment to Indiana Boys School for Kenneth?
Yes.
Because I'm hearing repeated acts of delinquency, which are one of the reasons the court would commit a young man to the Department of Correction. So why did you not recommend that to the court?
We felt at this time, I met with Kenneth, spoke with Mom that he has, he has the ability to maybe get through residential placement and become successful. We talked about DOC, and that was considered, but we said, you know, maybe we can give him one more chance to try residential.
Because he has a child now, right?
Yeah, he has a child, or I believe the child was born at the time. The child was in the process of being born, but we did consider the Department of Corrections. It was really strong in there when we were staffing, but we said we really felt that Silver State, which deals with a lot of things, maybe where he can come out with aftercare, would be best at this time if he could work that program if accepted.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. You may
You're
have a
welcome.
seat back there. Mr. Rock, any witnesses as it relates to Kenneth? Mom's already testified.
Like I said, Judge, Mom's already testified.
Ms. Hooker's present. You don't need her to testify.
Is there anything else you want to say? Was that again? Yeah, there was nothing new, Judge, that she had since the last time we were in
Okay.
court.
All right. Any argument then for Kenneth, or you're done?
Judge, I mean, I made the argument last time as to why I think that you know, they shouldn't remain here any longer. It seems to me that the recommendation that everybody concurs that that's the case. They shouldn't remain here. I will tell the court these guys want to go home with their mother. They really want to go home with their mother, as the court's well aware. And to the extent the court gives that weight and credence, obviously the mother's here and said she'll take them home and do whatever she can. If the court decides that's not in their best interest, I would suggest that the recommendation of Mr. Smith be followed and they not be, or particularly Kenneth not be sent to boys' school, that the recommendation be followed.
All right. Mrs. Guzek?
Judge, there's no argument that Kentrell needs some type of therapeutic placement. I think his the problems that were apparent in the psychological evaluation shows that Kentrell has some significant mental health needs that will not be addressed unless he's placed in a residential treatment facility that can not only address those needs, but perhaps allow him to transition into additional programs as he turns 18. My problem with Kenneth is that I'm seeing a lot of factors that Indiana Boys School does address. He's got a truancy problem, and they will address his educational needs. He's got a substance abuse problem, which can be addressed there. He's got a gang involvement problem, which can be addressed there. He's committed numerous acts of delinquency. Well, that's what Indiana Boys School is meant to address. And then you factor in that he's had counseling provided to him, and that he hasn't been terribly amenable to the counseling. I just question whether or not he's going to be amenable to the services of Silver State. He has a track record, and the track record isn't very, very good at this point. And you know, it's a serious matter for this court to decide that it's going to invest itself in a child to the extent that this county and this court is being asked to invest themselves in Kenneth. And I don't see that there's going to be a lot of bang for our buck, to be perfectly honest. I think he should be committed to Indiana Boys School. He not only has the charges pending before the juvenile court, but he's got potential charges as an adult that this court didn't have jurisdiction over because of his age that involved robbery, and it was a very heinous act. They were allegedly throwing concrete blocks at a man that was walking down the street. They didn't care if they killed that man, and I think he's a dangerous person.
Okay. Well, I would agree that I think Indiana Boys School can address a lot of the issues that Kenneth is facing and has faced in the past. But I know this much, if he were in the adult system, he would not be able to receive the treatment and the rehabilitation and the services that the juvenile court is designed to provide to children like Kenneth and like Kentrell. The state and the taxpayers are going to pay whether we send them to the Department of Correction or we send them to placement. And maybe we won't get the bang for the buck as you've described it, but I'm going to still put my faith in the juvenile court system, and that I think we can do a better job with kids than the adult system can do, and going to jail is going to do for him. I think, you know, Kenneth has a baby now, And I know that he wants to get out of here. He's written me 2 letters, and believe me, I would love nothing more than to send both boys home to you, Mrs. Gant. That would be really the ideal thing to do. But I think you as a mom, which is why you're crying your heart out back there, knows that that's not the right thing right now. Kenneth is on the verge. He's on the verge of either doing something really horrible in his life and take him away from you forever, or he's on the verge of maybe being able to turn that corner, and maybe if we hold his hand and help him turn that corner, he'll be able to do that. I mean, that's all we can do, and that's all I can do as a judge, is hope that he will hear somebody who can reach out to him to make his life better, and him take that advice and do the rest for himself, because we can't walk in his shoes. Only he can do that. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to order that he be committed to Indiana Boys School, but I'm going to stay his commitment, and I'm going to make him a ward of the court in order that he be placed appropriately. I will reserve placement as to where, since we haven't gotten the letters back from either of Silver State or Gibalt's to see which one will accept him. But I will set his matter for review in 3 months in any event. And as it relates to Kentrell, I think this is a young man that probably the juvenile court system was designed for in some respects, and that he's got a lot of deficits in his education. I couldn't let him walk away from us without trying to get him to a point where he's at least literate and can function in some type of a job. So hopefully, being in placement, he can get some job training as well. So today the court is going to make him a ward of the court in order that he be placed at IDTC, which stands for the Indiana Developmental Training Center in Indianapolis. I think that he will get the best treatment there that we can give him, and I'm going to set his matter for review as well in 3 months. I'll give you that date right now. I'm going to set it for December 16th at 8:30 a.m. for both boys for review. All right. Questions, Mrs. Gant? Okay. Mr. Ruck, anything else? No, Judge. Okay. All right. Then this hearing's adjourned. Thank you.
Why we got it, man? I hate it, man. Can't do that, man. They don't care about us, man. Ain't no changes to no state, man. No community. They don't know.
That's some bullshit, man. That's some bullshit.
You understand what she said, right? You're not going to boys' school. No, you're not going to boys' school. She stayed. That means that if you were to mess up again, you might go to boys' school. You're not going to boys' school. No, you're not. I understood what you were saying. You're not going.
Oh my God.
They're looking to steal you from those places. That's what they're waiting for. Okay? So relax, man. You're not going. You're not going to boys' school. Let me lock this so it doesn't move on you, okay?
Get me out of it.
Okay, come on. Yeah, when you hear the term stay, that means that they're holding that over you. That's all. Okay? If you No. If you go to this placement and you complete everything, then that's wiped out. If you go to this placement and say you run away and they catch you, okay, pick you up, then they can use that against you. Okay? So it's in your hands.